I went into one battle after another, hoping for something great that had been hyped up for months. To this day, I've never really been a Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I've always respected his work with what I've seen from him, but it just never clicked with me fully on some of his films. But this movie, one battle after another, it changed something. From the first act to the final shot, it pulled me in and didn't let go in a way where I've been looking forward to this for so long from the famed director. Today, I want to break down why One Battle After Another felt so different, not just as a PTA film, but as a cinematic experience that completely caught me off guard in the best way possible. My history with Paul Thomas Anderson is not as extensive, but it's something that helps paint a picture for those of you who are watching this video to understand where I'm coming from when I say that I have not been a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan. Before having seen One Battle After Another, I had only ever seen There Will Be Blood, and then a week ago, before the film came out, I watched Inherent Vice for the first time. The first time I watched There Will Be Blood, I was not as big into the film world as I am now, and at that time, I had only thought that that film was okay, but featured incredible performances, such as the one from the great Daniel Day-Lewis. It was a movie as a whole that wasn't as memorable for me, and I can definitely say the same for Inherent Vice, because I was bored to tears from this movie. A movie with a stacked cast that, given the premise, I thought would actually hold me throughout the whole runtime. About 30 minutes in, I was already about to give up, and I had fallen asleep multiple times throughout the entire thing. I don't normally ever fall asleep to movies, but Inherent Vice just could not hold my attention long enough for me to care. Paul Thomas Anderson has a very specific style to him that I think works for a very small kind of film-loving audience, and one that at this point, I think having seen 2 films within his filmography, I was not fully invested in it until now. Now, I would assume that most people watching this video have probably also seen the movie like I have, and I'm not going to talk about spoilers or anything, but I will talk about stuff that will make sense to those people who have seen it. One Battle After Another is what I needed to see from Paul Thomas Anderson, because it feels like it's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but also not at the same time. To explain, the biggest reason for this is because it infuses something that he actually doesn't do at all, at least to a regular extent within his other films that he's made, which is action. He has never made an action movie before. He is a kind of director who focuses on making dramas or romantic thrillers. Given how much action is involved with One Battle After Another, it's an element of filmmaking that elevates the storytelling capabilities that Paul Thomas Anderson is so good at developing. To the point of what this movie is portraying story-wise, it makes sense why there would be as much action in it as there is. It follows the character of Bob, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a washed-up revolutionary from a former group of violent political extremists called the French 75, who lives in a state of stoned paranoia, surviving off-grid with his daughter Willa. When his former group starts to be found and taken out by the US government, and Willa goes missing, he scrambles to find her as both father and daughter battle the consequences of their pasts. At the heart of it all, this is a father-daughter story, surrounded by a hardcore political storyline that goes heavy in detail with a lot of politically charged events that we are seeing a lot of today here in the United States. Because so much of that is infused within being an action thriller that never takes its foot off the gas, that is the ultimate reason why I was so locked in instead of being bored or not interested like I have been with some of Paul Thomas Anderson's other films. He is the kind of filmmaker where the story and characters do really matter to everything else that's going on, and thankfully, there is a storyline here that I care about. There are characters here that I care about. There is action that elevates the consequences and stakes that successfully paces the movie so beautifully, where instead of it feeling like 2 hours and 45 minutes, it felt like 2 hours or less. And of course, none of this would work if I also didn't believe the actors carrying the film all the way through till the very final scene. DiCaprio, once again, is showcasing why he is one of the greatest actors to ever live. He can do anything that he sets his mind to, and as a special shout out, given just how funny he is within this role more than I thought he would have been, I'm really glad that he still has that Wolf of Wall Street within him. I've watched that movie so many times now to know that even when he's not intentionally trying to be funny, he can still say dialogue in the best way possible, and there's no chance that I won't laugh. There is a running gag involving a password that has to be remembered that had me dying of laughter, and only DiCaprio could make it as funny as it was to where it probably wouldn't have worked with any other actor. He's playing a character that at the beginning of the film, you definitely don't agree with his methods of political extremism, but by the end of the film, you do kind of feel and get attached to him as a father to a kid that at this point in his life, now that she is all grown up, he doesn't want her getting involved in any of his past life. His daughter, Willa, played by Chase Infiniti, was the major underrated standout. I've never seen anything before from her, and there's a reason for that, because this is her second ever performance. Again, blown away by how well she portrayed the role of someone that you can feel for being involved in a situation that she wants absolutely nothing to do with, and by the end of the movie, when it is revealed to her what her family's history was about, it makes her relationship with DiCaprio's Bob all that more wholesome. I'm just gonna get it out of the way and also say that she is insanely cute, so there's another element to why I was locked in for all of her scenes. The rest of the supporting cast plays their roles to what they are given, and I can't speak highly enough of how great a movie is when you have an excellent supporting cast. To where I didn't get this with a film like Inherent Vice, One Battle After Another is a great and perfect example of how to utilize every kind of character. Benicio del Toro, as always, is fantastic. He plays a very jovial kind of character who is going with the flow of circumstances that he's actually way more used to when he gets caught up in the fight that Bob has brought to his doorstep. Regina Hall plays one of the surviving members of the original extremist group who kept herself hidden when the government was tracking everyone down. And while she doesn't have a whole lot to say in the film with the number of scenes that she has, you do feel her presence. Now, Teyana Taylor is not necessarily a supporting part of the cast because she's basically the lead of the opening to the movie, but once that's done, she doesn't have much screen time at all after that. I thought that she was alright for the role that she had as one of the leaders of the French 75 and mother to Willa. Again, a very limited role, so there's not much there to speak on. And then we have the biggest one of them all, the main supporting role of Sean Penn's Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw. This is one of the year's best supporting roles that we have seen yet, and it's not even close. What could come off as a very wild and wacky character that doesn't quite work fits even more when you realize his role within the film. That doesn't necessarily take away from the weird factor that he brings. He is still an insane human being with a twisted ideology worth exploiting for just how much of a piece of garbage human that he is. That's what ends up making him way more terrifying as well, and you've probably heard of the comparisons enough already, but he gives off similar energy to a character like Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. He has a method to his madness, and he's willing to get it by any means possible while not acting like a normal human being. I would not be surprised if Sean Penn got nominated for this performance and won for it. DiCaprio also might most likely get nominated for his performance, even if there is a chance that he won't win. All around, the actors knew the assignment, and Paul Thomas Anderson is able to bring out incredible performances as he's been doing his whole career. That is one of his strong suits at the end of the day. He is a great director with actors, even if the film as a whole doesn't hold up as much. I think where this movie finds its ability to bring in new fans like me to a filmmaker like Paul Thomas Anderson is a twofold conversation. For one, I think narratively, this movie might strike a chord with a lot of people just in terms of its relatability and relevancy to the times that we are living in now. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe Paul Thomas Anderson was creating a film to show that what the French 75 were doing is justified as much as their cause was. You can fight for something admirable that makes sense, but the execution of it is where these characters find their main flaws. DiCaprio, Teyana Taylor's character, and all these other people involved in this group are very flawed because of the extremism that they participate in. But once we get to the end, and someone like Bob is more down to earth and grounded with being a father protecting a kid, it flips, and your perception of how to feel about him is changed. The movie is definitely taking a stance towards one side to where it'll say that the other side is bad and evil, while showcasing the bad apples where they really are on both sides no matter what. It's not glorifying the political violence and saying that these people are right in their ways, especially with the consequences that many of these people find themselves succumbing to when they get caught. Nor is it giving you a title card at the beginning or end of the film to show you what it's representing. It makes you think on it for yourself. I could totally understand how people would come out of the film confused as to what they just watched, but I think when you talk about it and break it down, there is a lot to glean from. PTA said as much, that he had been writing One Battle After Another for about 20 years, but it took him this long to finally nail down what he wanted to make from it. His writing of this movie for the past 20 years is a representation of that timeline that just so happened to come out now and be as relevant as it ever has. The other aspect of this movie that I think makes it perfect for new fans like myself is that One Battle After Another understands the potential it has when everything is firing on all cylinders, especially from the filmmaking side. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find that now most people will want to see PTA keep doing more action. I can't harp on it enough. The action is very well filmed. The shot composition of a third act chase sequence is fantastic, and PTA is one of those filmmakers who understands that there is a way to do it when there would be no need to be pressured into making it a certain type of way that we see in a lot of other Hollywood films now. Quick cut action filled with bad looking CGI or green screen. PTA takes all of that and throws it out the window, and he skews more towards the traditional methods that make films look more real and authentic. And to be clear, that's not to say that CGI is not a good thing. It definitely is, but we've become so reliant on it that audiences see where its staleness and poor quality hurt the finished product. That's a whole conversation for another time, but I think that is where you will see a lot of people pulled into liking PTA as a filmmaker now. The movie came out to an A cinema score and will land PTA's biggest ever opening weekend at the domestic box office. I'm hoping that the results here show the worth of what he can bring, and more people in the future will come out to see his next set of films with whatever he makes. Hopefully, not too many more inherent vice types for me, and much more of one battle after another. And there you have it. That's my commentary and analysis. What did you all think of the movie, if you've seen it? And finally, what is your favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film? What kind of story would you like him to tackle next, whether you are a new or current fan of his? Leave your comments down below with your answers. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new here, and please turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build an awesome film community on here, and your support would be appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.